I think it's live, but I could be biased.
That was just a pun that was uncalled for.
I sent you that great cheat sheet of biases. I gotta get that up as well.
Yeah, you sent that via the Universe Today Slack channel.
Okay.
I had a moment of which Slack channel did he use earlier today.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where I put the chat for this hangout. I chatted.
Do you need a link? Are you okay?
Do you have a link for the pop-out?
I have a link for the pop-out, yeah.
That would be glorious. That would
I
save
will
me
put it
from...
into the... Whoops.
Pick a chat. Any chat.
Yeah, there's a bunch of chats. Whoa, interesting. Okay. There it is there.
That was not a chat I was expecting.
I have a lot of ways to chat. I have a lot of ways to chat at you, so... okay,
you could have hit me up via 4 different applications, so...
You're saying I'm echoey, Elid. Was that because I didn't have my microphone anywhere near my face? Is that possible?
That is totally possible.
Yeah. I wasn't echoey as opposed to just crappy. That's, I think, what my sound was sounding like. Okay, cool. Well, here we are. Hello, Pamela.
Hello, Fraser.
What's happening?
It's almost Halloween, and I'm very excited. And I got to spend my entire week coding, so it didn't suck. It turns out that I'm only a happy person when I get to write code.
Yeah, again, I think people should be aware of the weird combination between us that you are the astronomer that loves computer science, and I am the computer scientist who much prefers to talk about astronomy. So I think it all works out. And just how important computer science just is in general. Like, just...
I realized I'd been doing it wrong when on Tuesday I put up an away message that essentially boiled down to, I'm not reading email until I'm done with the relaunch of some aspects of CosmoQuest. And people were like, you code? And the fact that I had students working for me who we've only hired this year who didn't know I'm a programmer,
Yep.
just like hurt my soul.
Yeah, no, if you see stuff like all the website designs, the design of Astronomy Cast, the design of a lot of logos and graphics and stuff, that's all Pamela.
Yeah.
I mean, against her better judgment, with her gigantic list of things to do, that's all her. She's
but it makes me happy to code. This is true.
I know. It is absolutely true. You really enjoy it. It's so funny. And we'll catch you too, because you will go down that rabbit hole pretty fast if you are given a challenge that you're not entirely sure how to solve it, and you're like, I wonder if I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do this, and I can integrate that. So yeah.
So it's not live yet, but the new homepage that we're working on for CosmoQuest, it has a row of logos for all of our citizen science projects, happy text in the center, and then it has a set of highlight items. And I figured out how to build all of this, which our designer hadn't done. I figured out how to build all of this into a WordPress template that uses slides with different tags. And that sounds simple, and it should have been simple, but it wasn't. And I'm so happy I figured it out. That was my job this morning. I'm going to shut up now.
Should have been simple, wasn't simple.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that sounds like my my life. The enjoy part I'm not so sure about. I'm sort of at this point where, I'm just surrounded by technology. I've complained about this before, but I'm surrounded by technology all the time, and I just hate it all so much. I just hate all this technology. I'm totally dependent. I think that's what happens is you get to this place where it's like if you're a truck driver, right? And you just like your truck is acting up all the time. Yeah, you do have a very cool truck, but it's broken all the time. So anyway, that's my life with all the technology. I could probably rattle off 5-6 things about technology right now that's broken, that's stopping me from doing, various tasks that I need to do. And
this is how I feel about cleaning fish tanks. I love my fish tanks. I love looking at my fish. Dear God, I hate cleaning fish tanks.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm going to say hi to a bunch of people. You have all taken the time to say hello in the chat. Remember, this is what you're supposed to do. Say hello in the chat, and that way I will say hello to you. Brian Stab, D. Hardy, Dave Noderer, David Joseph Wesley, Illid Avron, Giselle Sabrin, Guido Bibra, Jessica Feltz, John Suffield, Keith Irvine, Kenneth Lepre, Lezek the Spacer, Lillian Brennan, Michael Harmer, Ole Jorgen Nordhagen, Renan C., Ryan Vade, Sylvan Westby, Tech Tang, Warbash, and Eunice Sofri. Oh, and the rest of you saying hi right now. Did I get Lillian Brennan? Okay. Cool. Well, so hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Now, if you have no idea what it is that you have stumbled into, this is going to be a live episode of Astronomy Cast. We're going to take, I don't know, some random number of minutes until my curiosity is sated to learn about a topic that's super interesting, and I think is going to be a little depressing, actually. And hopefully we can get to the bottom of that, and then we'll stick around and answer your questions about space and astronomy, or we'll just yak about Pamela's new Apple Watch if that's if you don't give us any really interesting questions. Okay, cool. Let's get cracking. Tell me when you are ready.
Window checking correct. No, it is not drawing audio off of anything correct. Let me.
Keith Irvine, I think you just trolled us, which is we just went into it in the Weekly Space Hangout, and Paul Matt Sutter's eyes were rolling around so quickly they were spinning. 5 sigmas. There are 5 sigma. So, yeah, go watch that.
Okay, I have to restart Audacity because it doesn't see my microphone.
Haven't you heard? Dark energy isn't real.
Yeah, no, that's one paper in a weird journal and stuff and things.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, Audacity is now using the correct microphone. I am ready to start.
I'm ready to press record.
I am pressing record, and it is recording.
I am also pressing record. It has also pressed record, and I hope that my mic control this week is better. We get a report card every week about how well we do our show. So, okay, here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 426, Confirmation Bias. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. My name is Fraser Cain. I'm the publisher of Universe Today, and with me is Dr. Pamela Gay, the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Fraser?
Doing great. I just want to remind people that if they're listening to the show via podcasting tools such as iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or whatever, could you take a second and give us some kind of rating, some kind of positive rating on the pod-catching application of your choice? It helps more people find out our show, and we really appreciate that. So, 5 stars. Cool. So, any other news in the Cosmoverse?
So there are like 30 seats left for our Astronomy Eclipse tour next August. And so if you want to go, sign up now. But you're going to have to be in an overflow hotel because the hotel was completely sold out already. So we are looking to arrange an overflow. There's a Hampton Inn down the street. Go to hotels.com, find something nearby. It's a great section of St. Louis. You will be fine. And only 33 seats left, guys.
And what are we going to do if we get those 33 seats filled? Are we done?
Susie is looking to see what is the largest group the hotel can accommodate in their meeting rooms. So I think given that would give us 100 people plus our crew, so you, me, families, Susie, Nancy, we may cap it at those 100, but we're going to talk to the hotel.
Okay. All right. So stay tuned. But if this is a thing you're just kind of sitting on the fence, like just commit now and then just, sell your ticket to someone else. Okay, here we go. So I hate to tell you this, but that meat computer in your skull is constantly betraying you. But don't worry, we've all got the same problem. Fortunately, scientists have learned that this happens and can help us make sure that our science and our lives don't suffer too badly because of it. So this was suggested last week. I think David Joseph Wesley suggested this topic, and we both just latched onto it right away because cognitive biases is an awesome topic, and it is such a big part of every scientist's toolkit. It's like the thing you've always got to be aware of. So let's talk about cognitive biases. Do you have a anecdote? I didn't prep you beforehand, but do you have an anecdote where a cognitive bias sort of messed you up in the process of doing some kind of science?
Not so much messed me up in science, but actually caused me to unlogically change my behavior. For a while, it seemed like every time I ordered a strawberry margarita, the emergency broadcasting system went off to tell me there was either a tornado or a thunderstorm bearing down upon my location. And having actually had my husband drive my Jeep through a tornado, which was not on purpose, it just kind of formed and rolled over us. Going home from drinking said red margarita, I stopped ordering red margaritas for a while. And you know what? The storm stopped too. And
Whoa.
Yeah, but the thing is, I live in Illinois, and there was actually a seasonal shift involved. So, yeah, confirmation bias is totally a thing. Superstition is totally a thing. But me drinking red margaritas does not cause the emergency broadcasting network to go off.
It does not summon tornadoes looking to stop you from drinking said margarita.
Exactly.
Yeah, the
exactly.
universe not only trying to kill you, but trying to specifically stop you from drinking these margaritas.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. What about you? Do you have any of these things?
I can't think of anything offhand, but I apologize for asking you the question and not having a response of my own. But have you ever had that situation where your brain has kind of disconnected and you're using one program or one piece of software or one device and you're expecting it to behave in a certain way, like the direction that you turn on the tap, but for some reason it's opposite, or it's even, you're not even turning on the tap, you're actually doing something else, and your brain just freaks out because you're like, I was expecting this output, and this is not what happened. And then you're like, whoa, wait a second, okay, right, of course, I'm actually using this completely different program. And it was just, because my brain was so expecting it to have a certain outcome, I was in complete autopilot until I realized that I wasn't. So, yeah, it's you get it enough, and as you look through, we're going to talk about the different kinds of cognitive biases that we suffer from. A lot of those are going to hit pretty close to home, and I'm sure a lot of people will then use this as a chance to sit back and deeply reevaluate their entire lives.
And this gets us to the whole idea of confirmation bias, which was actually coined by a British psychologist named Peter Wasson back in 1960. And this is the idea that when we see some sort of evidence that matches our already existing ideas, we're like, why, yes, of course this is true. And we add it to the pile of things that confirm what it is we already believe. But when we see something that doesn't line up with our preconceived ideas, we either fail to notice it or we completely disregard it. And this is essentially our brain going, too much information, filter, filter, filter. And as human beings, though, we pretend that we're logical creatures, and we're not. And confirmation bias is our brain filtering out information that we should use should we choose to actually be logical human beings.
Right. And I think I can give one more example, which is that if you're driving in a car and you're completely lost, but you don't know that you're lost, you think you're fine, and you're driving along, and the streets that are going past and the number of streets that that you're going to go past and the directions that you're turning, it all feels right. Until suddenly you realize you're completely lost and it's gone horribly wrong. But for that whole time, up until the moment that you finally realize that you're lost, every turn that you made fit in perfectly into this worldview that you had of where you were going. And it's that kind of that snapping at the end where your brain goes, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong side of town.
Well, and this also works for how we justify things. So in science, this crops up with the most obvious examples in animal science. You and I both grew up learning that what makes humans humans is we use tools. And we're the only animals that use tools. This is what we learned. Now, humans have been watching animals since before humans had language. And you know what? Animals use tools. We have found tool usage in everything ranging from octopi to crows to chimpanzees. Tools are common things, but it turned out that we had the ability, thanks to confirmation bias, to completely disregard all examples of tool usage until recently, when we started to it was finally okay to acknowledge that crows use tools.
Yeah. Okay. So from that initial inception, the initial idea of confirmation bias, how do scientists think about confirmation bias as they're sort of in the process of putting together their work?
So when we're teaching our students, we tell them, students, scientists are people that know how to throw out our ideas when we encounter evidence that proves us wrong. And then when we actually do our research, we throw out the data that doesn't support our ideas. And this is to the point of people refereeing journal articles will throw out papers that are based on perfectly good observations, perfectly good data, because they don't support the canonical way of thinking about things. There was actually a really cool paper about gamma ray bursts several years ago that brought up this concern that it appeared the only papers being published about gamma ray burst models supported one model, and that one model didn't actually explain all the kinds of gamma ray bursts that were being seen. And so there's this disconnect between all the observations and one model. And this was something that was pointed out by David Coward, who was actually being the opposite of a coward, when he basically said, look, we need to start looking at all these other models that actually start to step in and explain some of these other kinds of gamma ray burst observations. And the reality is we have to, as scientists, acknowledge, I'm going to screw this up, and hopefully peer review is what's going to actually fix this. Because I have one set of biases, one set of things that, in the lack of knowing the absolute truth, I'm going to go with. And someone coming from another school of thought, coming from another educational system, is going to have another set of biases that play into how they judge the work that they're reading. And hopefully, as a group, we have enough different and competing forms of confirmation bias that the truth makes it to publication.
So what are some examples of some of the biases that we can suffer? Because I think someone had identified that there are literally more than 100 different specifically identified cognitive biases that we can hit.
So confirmation bias is just one of many different forms of cognitive bias. There's everything from the basic overconfidence effect, where you are biased that, of course, the outcomes will work out the way I want them to. Brexit is kind of an example of that. I don't need to vote. Everyone's going to vote for it to stay, and then they're surprised, and then they're surprised when it didn't. Yeah, my favorite form of bias is actually one that I didn't even know the name of, but I had encountered multiple times. I'm a knitter. I'm not a great knitter, but I'm a knitter. And one of the first things I learned as a knitter is I can buy a sweater of much higher quality made by probably a little old grandma in Scotland that is listed as hand knitted and made out of wool for like $150. And I was like, that is stupidly expensive. I can make my own sweater.
Yeah.
But to buy just the wool as like me human instead of his giant corporation is going to cost me $100 to $150. And then it's going to take me like 40 hours to knit that sweater at a minimum. And even at minimum wage, I have now put more personal money and time is money into that sweater that isn't as good, but because I made it, I'm going to somehow like it more. And that doesn't make any sense because what I made is kind of crappy. I know this.
Yeah.
And this is what's called IKEA bias. People will buy furniture from IKEA that comes in the box with the hex wrenches and you curse and you yell at your spouse and you fight and eventually you end up with bookcases or in our case, bedroom set.
With one part that's installed backwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people love their IKEA furniture. And they rarely admit that it's just not necessarily as good as some of the other stuff you can buy out there. And this is because they sunk their own time into building it.
They built it. I built that.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's this cognitive bias that causes us to put greater value on something we built ourselves than we would put on something that we purchased that might actually be of better quality, lower cost, and thus greater actual value.
Right. And of course, the whole trick with this term about bias is that you don't realize really that your brain is going to default into these kinds of things. You know, you do a search for Google, it turns up one of the results confirms your beliefs, therefore your beliefs are doubly confirmed.
Right.
But you don't see the other 9 entries that are saying that your beliefs are flawed. You notice that one, and then that gives you the ammunition you need to go forward, right?
And this kind of bias is actually something that leads to a lot of people sharing things on Facebook that they think are real that are not. Because we see things that we want to be true, that we hope are true, and we share them believing they are true. Because all of the I want this, I hope for this, oh, it must be, happens subconsciously and logically. We simply share it as true. And I know a lot of people probably got sucked in by various, either it was Joe Biden said this or Trump said that or superstar such and such behaved in this kind of way. Satire as being real during this particular election season. And so this is where websites like Snoops become super important because it's easy for all of us to get sucked into this kind of, this story supports my pre-existing belief system. Therefore, I'm going to share it as though it's real, even if it's completely not.
Yeah, Snopes is the best. I think I've mentioned this in a show previously that I used to play this game with my kids called Snopes. And
No.
I would bring up the Snopes window. I would then read out the myth, and then they would try to guess whether it was real or fake. And then we would, and then go from there, because Snopes does a great job of showing whether this is real and confirmed or whether it's just a myth. And, and they got pretty good at being skeptical. I think I've released these hardened skeptics into the world at this point. No question. So one of the other things, let's go back to the science thing about this kind of, the confirmation bias, about this sort of preconceived notion that you're expecting a certain outcome, therefore when the outcome, or when that is one of the possibilities in the research comes out, you are prepared, you are going to jump on that outcome before any of the others. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
is a gigantic problem in science.
Yes. Yes, it is. I'm getting notes that my mic is overdriven. I'm sorry. Trying to move my mic further away from my face. I had
Don't
a good day. I'm talking louder than normal.
well, maybe I'm. It's who knows because it's the mix on the live stream as well. I've got you turned down a couple of decibels. I can turn you down a few more.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's the final mix that Chad's going to do for the editing. He's
Okay.
listening to this right now, so I wouldn't. By all means, let us know if our audio levels are roughly equivalent, and I'll keep trying to turn Pamela down. But the final mix for Astronomy Cast itself, that'll be done by Chad, and he can adjust the levels independently on his own. So,
Okay.
so please continue. Gigantic problem in science.
So in science, it really comes down to how it can sometimes take so long for a new idea to take hold. Literally, some science problems, we haven't been able to get the community to generally accept a new idea until the loudest voice in the old idea died. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. When I was coming up through the astronomy college education system, everyone was like, well, either the value for the Hubble constant is close to 50 or it's close to 100, because there were two different schools of thought led by two different human beings who were both very dominant, loud individuals. And it turned out that you had to either believe one or believe the other. And most of my faculty who didn't want to get involved in that would simply say, just use 100. It makes the math easier. And the reality is the Hubble constant is in between 50 and 100. It is neither 50 nor 100. But it took both of those people dying before we could get to an accepted reality. There's been problems like this throughout astronomy. There was poor Chandrasekhar, who it was like he was bashing a head against the entire ivory tower, trying to get basic ideas like white dwarfs are an actual thing accepted by the establishment.
Yeah.
Because there were loud voices who were like, that can't be a thing. And he was like, yes, these are a thing. Here, look at my math. And cognitive bias.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, part of it is like, if you're going to do a research paper, do you as a scientist, do most scientists take that step to examine their own cognitive biases to try and figure out what they are going to be almost like expecting? To then try to like rule that out?
I think that they most think they do, but then reality. And this is something that research on hiring practices shows up constantly, where women are just as likely as men, if you look at standard how they rank different candidates in various blind surveys. Women and men are equally likely to downgrade female candidates for a job because of the long-term entrenchment of the idea that women aren't as good. And things like this crop up over and over, where you can talk to someone who talks the talk, who talks about the importance of diversity, of inclusion, of everyone is equal. And then when you run the test, cognitive bias slips in. And so I think that in general, scientists will say, oh, if there was some new trend in my data that didn't match my preconceived ideas of what canonical scientific theory says must be true, I will, of course, explore this new idea. But the reality is, you take someone like Penzias and Wilson, and they will go to the extremes of scrubbing pigeon poo out of a telescope to try and get their data to match their preconceived idea of reality.
Right, and that's a good example, right? Is when they were searching for evidence. Well, you know what I think, or the opposite, right? Is when I think about the like dark energy, like back in the, when they were starting to do these supernova survey for dark energy and turned up all of these, the fact that the expansion of the universe was accelerating, this was the opposite of what they were expecting. And their every instinct was to say, this is wrong. We've made a mistake. This is not true.
Sometimes,
and so it went against their confirmation bias on this one.
And for cases like dark energy's discovery, you really have to have overwhelming evidence. As the folks who are working on those two surveys plowed forward, data point after data point after data point undeniably said, this line is curving in the opposite direction you guys expected. It's in that face of, I can't just delete one or two data points. It's all my data points saying this, that you have to change your opinions. Unfortunately, science is messy, and we often have multiple data points that we're trying to make sense of, and too few of them, and we're trying to get to a conclusion. And this is the other side where cognitive bias jumps in. We see it both on the, oh my gosh, there's way too much data, I need to filter this somehow, instinctual level. And we also see this on the, there's way too little data, I need to draw conclusions somehow. So human beings are pre-programmed to limit our data and to draw early conclusions, to jump to conclusions. Right. And both of these are different sides.
You can see how those keep us alive from an evolutionary standpoint, right? You can see how if you're hearing a lot of noises all at the same time, you're starting to think, well, maybe that's a saber-toothed tiger in that sound over there somewhere. And then vice versa, it's quiet. Too quiet.
Exactly. Right? And philosopher Francis Bacon actually said this very well back in 1620. He said, and such is the way of all superstition, whether in astrology, dreams, omens, divine judgments, or the like, wherein men, having a delight in such vanities, mark the events where they are fulfilled. But where they fail, though this happen much oftener, neglect and pass them by.
We remember the hits and we forget the misses.
Another way of putting this I saw on Twitter last night. All fungi are edible. Some of them just only once.
Oh, that's true. Oh, we've actually had a rash of those death cap mushrooms on the island.
No.
Yeah, somebody died from eating a death cap. A little child here on Vancouver Island. Like, they're spreading up this far north. So yeah, I know it's that's really good. Oh, that's a good thing on Twitter. Thanks, Twitter. Cool. So I guess, are there any advice that you can give to people who are trying to live in this world and not fall to their biases too much? What can we do to try and protect ourselves and protect the world?
At the end of the day, we all need to have friends that we can have open, frank discussions with, where they're like, no, dude, have you thought this through? And dude is a gender-free term.
Yeah.
And it's that friend that you can have this friendly debate with, back and forth, both of you calling each other, and being able to acknowledge your bias in reflection of another person who has different ways of thinking. Now, during this particular election cycle, I know just about everyone has had to unfriend that one person who is utterly unexamined and has a completely different idea and is constantly being shouty on social media. We all have that one or more friend or relative. But we need to have the person who has the different idea that is also open and able to debate. And this is the idea behind peer review, where if all of us work together, if we all poke fingers at each other's thoughts and ideas. The best example of this I've ever seen was back when I was in grad school. My advisor, John Cornbandy, we had just finished listening to a talk on modified Newtonian gravity. And this was back before we had gravitational microlensing observations showing us no, dark matter is actually stuff, it's made of particles. And this was a really good talk. And I went into his office afterwards to ask him a question in my dissertation. And he was sitting there with his head in his hands. And he's like, this could be true. And you could see that he was thoroughly thinking through all of the evidence, all of the ideas. And we all need to have those moments of deeply questioning and struggling with our ideas because someone else called us out and showed us a different way of looking at things. It's only through getting out of the echo chamber that we can really move thought, ideas, and science forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it always breaks your heart when you hear about the really great, really valid scientific ideas that were kind of quashed for too long, or the wrong ideas that were held too long, even though the evidence was really mounting. And a lot of people's careers were kind of ruined because the establishment wouldn't necessarily be open to new ideas and change their mind. So it does go both. It goes both ways, and it just shows that it is a kind of pernicious mind state that we all need to be really careful about, and we should be constantly examining our personal biases and professional as well, especially during this political system. Like, wow, like you watch the debate and then you watch the stream on Twitter and it's as if there's two different debates going on.
Yeah.
People are watching two different kinds of debates with their opinions. And I wish there'd be a way that people could just sit and just talk about the things in a way that isn't shouty, like just, right? Here's what you think. Here's what I think. Let's agree. Let's disagree. Like, yeah.
And this is where perhaps the best way to move past confirmation bias is to learn how to have articulate debate that is from a point of respect, even if you both have different ideas. And if we can somehow learn how to question without being shouty, and being open to hearing someone else's perspective. Of course, that's a kind of transcendent idea that we may not be ready for as
good luck with
beings. But
well, that could just be your confirmation bias.
It's true. It's true.
All right. Well, thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.
Save.
That was the best way to close the show. Well done. This is
Ryo San is asking if I can announce the Weekly Space Hangout if there's going to be a live show later. So, the Weekly Space Hangout is very dependable. It's always on Fridays, unless I can't think of a time that hasn't recently. So you can always expect that's going to happen. Astronomy Cast has to move depending on either Pamela's schedule or my schedule, so we do move around quite a bit. As you know, the folks in the chat will say that it's happening, but the best thing to do is if you haven't subscribed to Astronomy Cast on YouTube, then when you subscribe, there's the little notification bell, and if you click that, your phone will freak out. Your computer will freak out when we are about to record. You'll see our live events. It takes your subscription to the next level. So if you haven't already, go and turn on that notification flag on YouTube. If you want, when I release the new episodes of The Guide to Space, or if we do the new Weekly Space Hangout, we're going live, you'll know the second it happens. Same thing when we go live with Astronomy Cast. So that is the best advice that I have, is turn on that notification flag. Apart from that, we tweet about it. We try to use every tool that we have at our disposal to let you guys know when this is happening and when it changes. So because this one does definitely change from time to time.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hey, we're here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're pretty good at being consistent.
Yep. So I hope that that helps out. Cool. Let's see. So Ilad Avron's saying, wonderful source for learning more about cognitive biases is the You Are Not So Smart podcast and book by David McRaney. So
There's also an excellent trio of articles in the Wall Street Journal back in 2012 that I greatly enjoyed. It's in their Mind and Matter section.
David Joseph Wesley says, I choose to believe in and fully support Cthulhu, just in case, regardless of confirmation bias. Well, that's how, Cthulhu Fhtagn, that's the way that Cthulhu would want you to provide your support. What else? Come on. Questions. So then we can get into it a bit about the dark energy. So the gist was, I don't know if you saw what happened this week. So Oxford, they released a study. They found, I think, only a 3 sigma detection of supernova expansion evidence for dark energy. And so then Oxford published this sort of piece, this press release, that essentially dark energy might not be real because of this. And
this is how you increase your funding.
And the journalists just went, took that and just said dark energy isn't real.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just like,
And here's where I need to point out the gravitational wave discovery earlier this year was like 3 sigma, and all of you jumped at it. So pick one.
Let's see. Warbash asks, would the uncertainty principle be a physical manifestation of a need for bias?
No, the uncertainty principle is an effect of quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
It's an actual physical limitation on reality.
Thanks, Heisenberg. Old Jorgen Nordhagen is saying that Icelandic women went home 13% earlier today due to a lower average wage. Is this like a protest that's happening in Iceland? That's kind of a cool idea.
Would be awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea
And the fact that they're only paid 13% less. Go Iceland!
Like you see a 13% discrimination as a really good.
It's so much better than here.
That's nearly parity.
That's called social bias, or status quo bias, rather, where you get so used to status quo that even if your situation sucks, you perceive it as normal, and slight variations are seen as astronomical variations.
Yeah, that is funny. That's hilarious to me that was your first response.
Well, we're at like 20 to 30% less here.
Yeah. Let's see. And then Jason Rambos was saying the sunken cost fallacy. That's a great one. Can
you say that again?
The sunken cost fallacy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's a brutal one. And a lot of people follow that one for sure.
You want to go ahead and explain it?
Sure. The sunk cost fallacy is that from a purely financial standpoint, you could have, like, for example, let's say that you invest in a, building a house or something like that, and you kind of get halfway built and the house goes way over budget, and then you're like, well, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound, I might as well keep working on this project because I've already started it. And that is called the sunk cost fallacy. You have sunk the costs in, and now you have made this fallacy. But the thing that you need to do is you need to examine sort of the future of the project and say, based on where I am right now and what it's going to cost me to complete this project, does it still make sense? And it ends up working quite well. It happens a lot with like financial systems where a person invests in some company at a certain level, the company goes down, so now their money is worth a lot less, and they say, I can't leave now, I can't sell now because I will lose all this money. But the reality is that you have to look at it just like literally every day and go, if I invested the money, I have this much money, is it worth keeping or not? And if the answer is no, then you need to dump it. And if the answer is yes, then you need to keep it. But it has nothing to do with what happened in the past, right? So that's the sunk cost fallacy, and it is brutal. Whenever you hear anybody say, I can't, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. I've already put in this money, so I can't stop now. I need to wait for it to go up again for me to sell, etc. That is what you have to. That's where the sunk cost fallacy comes in. Okay. Let's see. So physics police is saying that the earning gaps in the U.S. is in the single digits.
No, not for astronomy and physics academia. So in faculty, it's running 20 to 40%.
Wow.
Depends on the institution. But yeah, it's pretty brutal.
I'm not sure. At this point, I can't neither confirm nor deny, but I'm sure you've looked into it.
Yeah.
David Joseph Wesley asks, how do you think we can get opposing sides to listen to each other respectfully? Do you think that social media helps or exacerbates the problem?
I don't know. I just don't know.
It blows my mind how shouty people get when they have these kinds of conversations. And like, I don't know, maybe because I'm a gentle Canadian, we don't have those same levels of, we just don't have those same levels of extremes here, but it's weird that people can't, to me anyway, that people just get so yelly on both sides of the spectrum. And I don't really know what you can do. As it relates to my own channel, generally, when people say fairly kind of bombastic things, I try to sort of diffuse them a little bit, or I ban them if they're just being mean, Like I don't really, if you're gonna be an ass, then you need to go, and that's just my rule. If you're gonna be a mean person, go. And if you're going to say something otherwise, if you're going to disagree or whatever, then we can have a conversation. And in general, I'm looking for some common ground first. But that's just kind of my, that's my take. I don't know. It's a tough one. Like, I think we as the participants need to not get sucked into it and not rise to the bait, and I don't know. It's the weirdest thing, People are mean.
Yes,
on the social medias.
Yeah. And if any of you want to explore the gender in academia, the Chronicle of Higher Eds allows you to look up faculty salaries by gender, by either institution or state, and different places vary different amounts, but it's
Chloe, I'm doing the show. I'll pick you up in half an hour. Weird. Okay. My daughter's like trying to call me. I let everyone's enforcing that rule right now in the chat. I think that's the rule. Like, if you run a community, if people are jerks, throw them out.
Yeah.
Even if they're jerks in your honor, right? Like, that's the one that I find I have a really hard time with, when someone is really cruel, about something that I absolutely believe in, and I'm like, oh, I hate to do this, but get out. Because you're a jerk.
Yeah.
Right? Because that has to be applied evenly. So that is my take on it. I don't know. It's a tough one. Carolyn B is saying, if I remember this correctly, 50-foot woman film, gold prospector spent decades looking, everyone knows no gold. But he can't admit he wasted so many years.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Am I wearing a shirt with constellations on it? No.
That's me, and I am.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yes.
It's a shirt. Well, it's actually an entire dress from, I'm going to mispronounce it, Isfaha Steam Angels. It's a company that does super nerdy clothing that I learned it from Sci Curious, at Sci Curious on Twitter. She has an awesome Twitter feed you should follow. And she's like, yes, they make clothes from size 2 to size 4XL, and they wash, and they have pockets. And she had me at pockets, because women's clothes generally have terrible pockets. And So I got this one, which has stars all over it and wannabe constellations. There's nothing scientific about it, but it's cute and it fits well and it has pockets. And I have another one that has circuit boards all over it. And they're both super comfortable, super washable. Svaha Angels.
Can you sort of show, like, your hair is in the way of
Oh,
some
sorry. My hair
there.
eats things. It's what it does. See?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it has little constellation patterns all over it. The constellations are real. It's just the background star pattern isn't.
Right. Like, I think I see the part of the summer triangle there.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
So yeah, go to Svaha Angels, and I'm going to slowly be buying like all their clothing because I got these two, and it's like I will live in these. I do not need to wear real pants ever again.
Speaking of trolling, trolls got booted.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So people are asking. Yeah, I'm gonna drop a link to the website into the chat. Hold on.
Okay.
Yep, this is it.
Halloween costumes or plans?
Yes. My husband and I are going to do Jedis this year.
Right on. We are going to, my daughter's doing her birthday party tomorrow, and we're going to, and so it's going to be Halloween themed, and so they're all going to come over and do that. And
That's
then we're
awesome.
going to, it's probably like the kids' last Halloween, so we're going to go out probably and do the trick-or-treating one last time. And then they don't do the trick or treating. He's 12, right? So this may be his final year of doing the trick or treating. I'm not sure whether he wants to do it or not. If not, then we'll sort of hang out here, and I really enjoy. We've got sort of a pretty good spot, and lots of kids come by, and so it's great to just kind of give out all the candy, but also it feels like you're in a bit of a war zone with all of the fireworks. Do you guys do that on Halloween in the States?
No, but we have a parade, the actual Halloween in the town I live in. So trick-or-treating is the night before Halloween.
What?
And then the night of Halloween is the parade. And so yeah, we get basically 2 nights of Halloween here, and I'm okay with that.
Weird. No. So whatever is the 31st, you always do the trick-or-treating. Mm-hmm. And here, my wife's American, right? And she was like, "No, so here, Halloween night sounds like a war zone. It's just
geez,
yeah, it's just that's when we do all the fireworks. Like the vast majority of the fireworks you'll hear all year is on Halloween. That's it.
That's weird.
Yeah, not even like people don't even get them for Canada Day. Yeah.
Okay. Folks are asking if my dress glows in the dark. Yes, it does.
It does? Oh, that's pretty awesome.
The stars glow in the dark.
That's really cool. Paul Taylor, if you blow up a balloon and it expands, is that counted as dark energy?
No. It's a good simulation.
No, and that's what Ayla Abraham was saying. That's a really good metaphor, right? Which is that you are blowing air into it. It's increasing the pressure of the inside of the balloon, and it's causing the balloon to expand, and those air molecules are
dark energy is a whole lot more complicated than that. And the other problem with the expansion of a balloon is galaxies are held together gravitationally and they don't expand. So what you actually want to do is like take your balloon and put stickers all over it, because the stickers won't change in size, and then blow up your balloon, and then the stickers will increase in separation, and this is simulating the expansion of the universe. But dark energy says the universe is accelerating as it expands, and unless you have really good lung control, that's super hard to simulate.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we've sort of reached the end. Unisufri wants to know, is there any update on CosmoQuest?
We're in the process of launching new site designs. We're going to have some big announcements in January, so stay tuned.
That is awesome. I'm pretty excited. And we're sorry. We've got to wait to hear the full news. So, okay, cool. Well, why don't we wrap things up? Thanks, Pamela, for bringing your brain this week, as always.
Always happy.
And have a fun Halloween. I hope the
You
force
too.
is with you.
May the force be with you.
I can't believe I got that wrong. All right, thanks everyone for watching. Once again, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. This is the Astronomy Cast channel, totally different from the from my personal channel, and so you want to follow that. You'll want to click on the little notification thing to find out when we actually go live. Cool. All right, and thanks to the folks in the chat for troll whacking.
It's been amazing to watch you
apologies
guys.
if I was distracted. I was watching this play out in real time. It literally, as the things we were describing were were playing out in the chat. So that was pretty funny. Cool. Okay. Well, we'll see you guys all next week.
Happy Halloween.